The Ripper eternal. The trench reeked of wet earth, unwashed wool, and the sour stink of men kept too long in one place. Private Emil Hartmann sat on a damp crate, his rifle resting across his knees. Above him, a lantern hissed, throwing weak, flickering light against the mud walls. He tried to write in his notebook, but his pencil would not move. The others were whispering again. They always did when the guns fell silent. "They say it wasn't the French," a boy from Hamburg muttered, his greatcoat pulled tight to his chin. "Not the shells. Something else." Emil looked up. Something else. The boy's face was pale in the gloom. Him. At the far end, Feldwebel Dietrich Brandt stirred. The old soldier's face was a map of scars and shadow. He had been in uniform since before Emil was born. Der Schnitter, Brandt said, the German name for the Ripper, the Eternal Reaper, carrying like gravel sliding into a grave. "I saw his work in the last war. At Sedan in 70. Same cuts. Same silence before the scream. A profound cold, deeper than the mud, seeped through the dugout. Sergeant Wilhelm Vogel spat into the dirt. A former policeman from Munich, he saw the world through a lens of evidence and procedure. Rubbish. Shells tear men apart. Knives do too. Men vanish, bodies rot. That is war. Do not fill the boys' heads with fairy tales." Emil wanted to agree, but Brandt looked absolutely certain. Above them, the trench groaned. A flare cracked to life, its brilliant white light making the dugout walls shiver. Drawn by instinct, Emil peered up through the firing slit. The battlefield stretched out, a silver wasteland. And for a moment, just long enough for his breath to catch, he thought he saw a figure crouched out there. A shape low against the wire, watching. The flare died. The darkness crashed back in. Emil closed his notebook. The pencil in his hand snapped. Morning came gray and damp. As Emil climbed out of the dugout, he tried to shake the weight of a sleepless night from his shoulders. He watched the others in his unit, each man a potential suspect, each a potential victim. Lance Corporal Karl Weiss, the medical student, crouched with a textbook, sketching anatomy in the margins with trembling fingers. Corporal Otto Mertens, the butcher's son, sharpened his trench knife with slow, deliberate strokes, a grin fixed on his face. And Lieutenant Friedrich Adler, the aristocratic officer, gave orders with a calm certainty that was betrayed by the tremor in his hands when he lit a cigarette. Later that afternoon, a messenger came down the line. He was a Gefreiter from the List Regiment, a narrow-shouldered man with dark hair and unblinking eyes that seemed to look through the trench walls. "Gefreiter Hitler," someone whispered as he passed. He did not acknowledge them, his lips moving faintly as if reciting speeches to himself. When he paused near Emil's post, the match he struck revealed a pale, intent face. The men muttered after he had passed. "Strange one," a soldier said. "If anyone here is touched by the Ripper, it is that one." Suspicion flickered and died. He was just an odd dispatch runner in a war full of them. Shortly after, another visitor arrived. An officer from a Hanoverian regiment. His name was Ernst Junger. He was young and neat with a notebook of his own. When men spoke of the mutilated bodies, his eyes lit with a clinical interest rather than fear. "Fascinating," Junger said softly, as if the subject were some rare insect. He described war as a forge, stripping away weakness to reveal truth. Of the mutilations, he only shrugged. Death takes many forms. Some are more honest than others. His words chilled Emil more than Brandt's whispers had, as though the horror were natural, even necessary. That night, Emil dreamed of knives and notebooks, of men writing while others bled. The order came at dusk, a patrol to a listening post that had gone quiet. Emil drew the short straw. As they crawled through the wire, a flare cracked open. Emil saw it again. A figure unnaturally still, crouched over the mud. Its hands were working at something he could not see. The flare died. The others had not seen. By the time they returned to the trench, the news was already spreading. A body had been found in a shell hole. It was opened neat as if for study. "The Ripper walks in the trenches," someone said. The military police took Karl Weiss for questioning. His medical knowledge made him the obvious suspect. As he was led away, protesting his innocence, Vogel's policeman instincts took over. His eyes swept the dugout, cataloging every detail, every face. The whispers grew louder. Men now looked for someone to blame. They found their next target in Otto Mertens, caught cleaning a blood-stained rag. From rations? Mertens sneered, holding it up to the lantern light. Pork. A fight erupted. A chaotic scuffle of fear and accusation in the mud. Lieutenant Adler restored order, but the damage was done. The trench had turned on itself. Then, a French prisoner was brought in, captured during a morning raid. He was terrified, but not of them. L'Aventure immortal, he whispered, his eyes wide. We lose men too. Torn open. He said his lieutenant, a man named de Gaulle, told them the Ripper hunts cowards. Propaganda meant to keep them from deserting, but a story that only fed the terror. The words fell heavy in the cramped dugout. The Ripper was not German. He was not French. He walked wherever there was mud and death. They laid the next body on a table in the dugout. A soldier from their patrol, cut open with terrible precision. The organs were not scattered but placed, as if for display. Weiss, released from custody, stared in horror. Look at the cuts, he stammered. Too neat for me. This is art, not study. And you would know the difference, butcher's son? Vogel asked Mertens, whose grin never faltered. The dugout erupted in accusations. It was then that Chaplain Matthias Bauer stepped forward, his Bible held in one hand. You think this is the work of one man, he said softly. He reached into his coat and drew out a small, worn notebook. I hear confessions. I write them down. He opened it, his hands trembling. Some men speak of blackouts, of hours lost, of waking with blood on their hands. One dreamed of Whitechapel, of gaslit streets he had never seen. Another said he felt a presence behind his eyes, guiding his knife. Bauer pressed the notebook to his chest. This is not one man, he said, his voice cracking. It moves from soul to soul. It wears uniforms like coats. It is here with us now. The bombardment began before dawn, a rolling thunder that shook the world. In the strobing glare of shellfire and flares, Emile saw a figure moving in no man's land, dragging a body. The flare lit its uniform, German gray. He blinked. Another flare burst, and now the coat and helmet were British. When the guns fell quiet, a new sound carried across the wire. English voices, ragged with panic. The Ripper's here, a voice screamed. Emile thought he heard the name of a regiment, the Lancashire Fusiliers. Another voice cried out about a shadow that walks, a nameless thing. Emile's blood ran cold. The fear was no longer theirs alone. The trench broke. Adler, his aristocratic composure shattered, shouted that all suspects would be shot at dawn. Weiss and Mertens, he ordered. For the good of the regiment, we will cut away the disease. This is madness, Vogel roared. You will only feed the fear. But the fear was already a beast, and it was devouring them whole. Night came on, heavy with fog. A scream rose and fell. They ran to find Otto Mertens, his chest cut open in the Ripper's neat lines, his own knife still sheathed at his belt. Then Emile saw it, a shadow at the far end of the trench, half hidden in the fog. Stop there, Vogel barked, raising his pistol. The figure stepped forward. A flare burst above, bleaching the trench in white light. It was a man, mud-caked and blood-stained, his hands dripping red, his mouth stretched into a grin that was not human. A soldier fired. The man staggered but did not fall. The flare hissed out. Darkness closed in. When Emile blinked the spots from his eyes, the figure was gone. The events were officially recorded as enemy activity. The survivors knew better. In his notebook, Emile Hartmann wrote the final entry. Adler shot no one. There was no one left to shoot. We saw him in the flares wearing our coats. Then there's. The English screamed his name, and so did the French. We killed each other, we blamed each other, but he still walks. Perhaps the Ripper is not a man at all. Perhaps he is the war itself. Perhaps he will always be here,